Elevator Systems, Bowen Family Systems Theory in brief for a life of learning. Welcome to Elevator Systems, where we look at Bowen Family Systems Theory ideas in brief and understandable ways. This episode, we are continuing our journey across the lifespan and thinking about launching, which is something that has been in my life for the past 5 years or so. And so I'm excited to bounce some ideas today. And joining us for the conversation is Erik Thompson. Welcome, Erik.
Thank you. Good to see you guys.
Yeah. Erik is a licensed leadership psychologist with 3 decades of experience helping families. He founded Thompson Leadership Development, where he has worked with senior executives and their teams for the past 20 years. He also moonlights as the executive director of the Vermont Center for Family Studies. He created a 6-episode podcast called To Honor and Cherish, designed to support couples in achieving a, he says, sparky and sustainable relationship. And he also has an interview podcast called Leader Sight, which captures the wisdom of some of Erik's favorite founders and executives. Erik says he lives in the glorious mountains of Vermont with an inspiring wife, and together they've launched 4 delightful daughters, which has made me rethink how I describe my family automatically.
What you should do is rethink the idea of ever having 4 kids.
Well, I have 3. So welcome, Erik. Katie has 1, yeah. You get the first elevator pitch on how Bowen theory is useful in thinking about this launching stage.
Okay. Love them or launch them. Take your pick.
Done?
That's your pitch. Wow.
That's it. Drop the mic.
Wow. Okay. All right. I'm interested. I will go, but I'm interested to ask some questions afterwards. So I have been thinking about different ways I use Bowen theory to think about this. So I was going to throw out my ideas for this episode where I have no experience launching any children. Very different phase in my life. Is thinking about emotional mechanisms and triangles. So what role have children played in stabilizing this family unit? I think I'll stop there. That's my pitch. I'm going to say more later.
Katie, are you buckling to the pressure of a brief pitch?
I might be. Dixie, what have you got?
Okay, I'm going to say more. I have some questions. How does a person think about or define successful launching? When someone asks you, how are your kids doing? What are the things that you bring up or you avoid bringing up? And what gets the focus? Is it work? Is it education? Is it relationships? Is it where they're living? Or, I mean, this came to me because I grew up in the evangelical Christian world, and there's definitely like a list of sins that help people define what is successful or not. And so the Bowen theory concepts that I think are useful here, I mean, there are many, but I focused on multi-generational transmission process and societal emotional process. So what are the family or individual values that have been expressed about launching? How have they been lived out or rejected through the generations, and how intensely? What were the societal norms or pressures for those generations? And how much flexibility or space did people have to try their own ideas? How thoughtfully do people engage with these spoken and unspoken expectations? Or if I was to do it in one sentence, it would be, how might the things you or those around you fear or focus on, how do they filter out your fundamental values? I always have a negative bent. Pardon?
I said it almost rhymed.
Yeah, it's lots of F's. From the Murray Bowen Archives Project. This is from a letter in 1962. After adolescence, they deal with this by denying the importance of the parents and acting over-independent. In leaving home, they tear themselves away or go away from the parents instead of growing away. And they are vulnerable to future emotional involvements. In a paper called Big Brother Returns Home Again from 82, along the way, my family of origin became more meaningful than ever before. Home was secure base as long as my parents were there to maintain a home base. Home was as meaningful as it was in my childhood. Each trip home was another effort to know more and to further my effort to be an individual in my own right. And then Jenny Brown has a great section in Growing Yourself Up. I have like half a page here, which I will not read, but people should find it. A healthy leaving home transition has a reasonably good balance between connection and independence. Being able to be both an independent thinker and a caring relator is at the heart of becoming a mature adult. And the opposite ends of the leaving home spectrum reveal the main growing up barriers. At one extreme is the young person who runs away or breaks away from home, and the opposite is the young person who never managed to live without their parents' approval. Okay, and then last one, Betty Carter. Leaving home, the young person's major family transition before marriage is almost like a fingerprint, revealing the family program for handling relationship transitions.
Oh.
All right. What do you notice?
Well, I know we can cover all this in about 10 minutes, I think. Actually, we might need 10 hours. Tear themselves away on one end of the spectrum. Don't worry, you don't need to pay rent at 32 on the other end of the spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
And Bowen working on launching for his entire life. Kept on launching.
That's interesting. I've never thought of it that way, Eric.
Well, differentiation, launching, they're connected.
Yeah. Still working on that relationship.
Standing on your own 2 feet.
Yeah.
He kept working on that.
You know what I found is interesting, which is just kind of a random side note, is many of those things are talking about the position, viewing this through the position of the kid, for lack of a better word. Like, and when I was preparing for this, I was thinking about it in the perspective of the household that's left behind, which I know we're actually doing an episode on empty nesting, but I just thought that was interesting that my perspective went not to the launching kid, but to how does the family manage from both sides, like manage that process.
I'm kind of more interested in the parent side of it and the multi-generational side, but hey, I'm going to tell the audience a big secret right now. Those of you who don't have kids who are over 18 yet, if you're in the younger kids, here's the big secret, okay? It's the spacious nest where the cabinet doors are closed, where the bills are lower, where there are no dirty dishes in bedrooms, and it's quieter, and it's so great. And, I will say I want to celebrate a little because I just think one of the wonderful parts of parenting is noticing when your kids are becoming a self.
Yeah.
And you can start having those wonderful experiences really early, but for us, there has been a particular joy in the 20s. And, even a bit of a surprise, like, oh, and I think a lot of people experience this, who have the, maybe luck of nature plus skills and so forth of achieving that feeling that your kids actually could survive if you got hit by a bus. Both of them parents could survive. They'd be okay. Not only would they survive, they'd be all right.
Yeah.
And that feeling, watching that emerge, was like goosebumpy for me. Yeah.
Eric, I'm interested in that because when I was thinking about this episode, I was thinking about the idea that potentially this is a vulnerable time for a marriage when children are launching. So as you're thinking about it, how does the family think or prepare to have this a less vulnerable or risky time?
I think the preparation starts when you yourself are 20 years old. I mean, you're preparing for your kid's launching phase your whole life. And the mindset that you have about parenting is baked before you become a parent, and it shows up all through the parenting journey.
Yeah.
You mentioned vulnerable time. I used to, do couples counseling for a long time. And one of the most salient patterns that I noticed was marital disruption when, like, the youngest starts high school, or when the oldest graduates from high school. And sadly, large number of neighbors, friends, and clients their marriages actually went down.
Yeah.
And I think, what a wonderful concept we have in Bowen theory. And Katie's question kind of pointed to that. To what degree is the triangle with the parents stabilizing the marriage? That's a great question what a wonderful question for marital stability. And that's what I saw. I mean, I got a bunch of stories watching how, they have really kind of make an anxious project out of the kid.
Yeah.
And less of a project of themselves and their marriage, and a little bit hiding behind the parent job.
Yeah.
And I think some of this parenting stuff is hilarious. Like, there's a little bit of like healthy, like, yeah, they kind of, I want them out of here.
Yeah.
Which I think is healthy.
Yeah.
Like junior high, I think nature bakes into us a bit of disgust about our kids that emerges and gets more strong through puberty. Yep. I mean, I really think there's almost like a pheromone dimension of that disgust. I remember a mother telling me how gross her son's bedroom smelled.
I thought there was some research behind that.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Yeah. Evolutionarily, we want to launch them so that they can start a new family and not try and start a new family in their current family.
Yeah. Yeah, there does seem to be this opposite tension on keeping them around, But I think about the monkeys and the chimps and we could talk about Jane Goodall and Flint and Flo, but the male monkeys, in a lot of troops, in a lot of species, they are not going to be around after puberty. They're gone. Yeah. It's not going to be, and I just think that's in us.
Yeah, I appreciate what you said before too. I was sitting with a couple last night who came in to think about their worry about their toddler. And I was thinking about how you're so right that this stuff gets set up.
Oh yeah.
Before kids. And how does, a person like me sitting across from these folks when they're worried about their toddler's behavior, how do you put some thinking in that plants the seed that then helps on each little journey along the way?
Oh, they're so fortunate and so smart to be consulting with you. Because I think there are so many messages bombarding parents that are all about, it's your job to make sure they experience emotional safety. That's the number one threat to your kids, that they won't feel safe. And the number one problem is they're not getting enough empathy. And the number one, threat is that they'll be abused and not protected. Well, I believe in all those things, but too much of a good thing is rampant in America.
Yeah. Yeah. And then you have an epidemic of parent, that report that the Surgeon General in the United States put out about parenting, how these parents are stressed out and burned out and depressed and anxious. And
and then you could go with that is you could say, oh, well, they're burned out and anxious because they need more support and love and they need more empathy and they didn't get enough empathy as kids, instead of going, oh, you know what? Maybe they're burned out because they're like trying to do something that doesn't work.
Yeah.
They're not thinking enough about launching.
Yeah.
They don't have that as a target enough early on, like an early target. This is a launching game. It's going to be over before we realize it. Let's start playing the launching game early.
Yeah. How do you think about that? How do you position yourself? Like, how do you, I think so many of these podcasts come back down to thinking about using the lens of Bowen theory to get clear on what you as an individual think about things. And then how do you go into your relationships and hold on to those things you're thinking about?
Yeah. I remember our wonderful colleague and mentor, Dr. Daniel Paparo, saying at a conference years and years ago when I was an early clinician, and it lit me up, and he said, children don't gain more confidence by being more loved. They gain more confidence by overcoming difficult challenges on their own. And recently I was hearing about some summer camp stories. And one person was telling me they were surprised that this very successful executive woman who they know was more than just feeling vulnerable or sad when their 12-year-old was going to camp for the first time, but it was more of a kind of a like, I need to do something about this. I'm not hearing from the camp. I need to intervene. I need to get the camp. I need to get the camp on the line, and they're not responding. I thought that was just a really interesting little snapshot.
Yeah.
Versus a parent who might say, wow, I can't believe how emotional I feel about my 12-year-old being out of touch for the first time for a whole week, away from their cell phone in the woods. But I know that feeling is like really good for me not to act on.
Yeah.
I know, because it's actually a great feeling. This is me letting them go. You know, and so how you frame that experience, what a variation. And we could keep going on the other two sides of that even further, where you can't even go to camp.
Yes.
Because we know that camps aren't safe. You know, and all the different versions of that. It doesn't have to be a summer camp story. It's all the different versions of they can't do that because it's not safe.
And how does a parent look for, you know, I think I say a lot on here, that idea that Murray Bowen has about the reality needs of the child. And how do we pay attention to a child's opportunity that they're asking for independence? You know, I talk about my own story. I think that my daughter really wanted to walk home from school, and I had to manage my discomfort of her asking for this independence. And I like from a kid who was a latchkey kid, like I always laugh. I'm like, I think from the time I was 9, we walked home. I opened the door. We waited till my mom got home from work. Like such a piece of how the parent manages their own discomfort around this.
Yeah. A little funny story. I was telling my daughter 2 nights ago, one of my daughters, about this podcast, and we were talking about summer camp, and she goes, yeah, I remember the first letter I got from Dad at camp when I was, whatever, she was 10. She's like, it was so sappy, I didn't even read it. I loved that. It's so funny. Oh my God, I bet it was too. But what a wonderful structure a lot of these camps still maintain, that it's only letters.
Yeah.
No cell phone.
Because, you know, it's such a challenge that kids and parents are up against today, that technology allows you literally to track their every move.
Oh my God, yes. Can you believe she didn't even read it?
I can.
Katie can't believe it. And, you know, I have to say, I when I heard the story, I thought, well, her decision not to read it was pretty predictive. Yeah, she is on her own.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My example was a little bit the opposite, so you can tell me your thoughts on this.
Okay.
I know someone who, when they were in university, their sister-in-law said to them, you know, you don't have to tell your mom everything anymore. And then that person promptly told their mom, so-and-so says I don't have to tell you everything anymore. And that possibly was me, but anyways.
I think the sister-in-law, you know, was functioning as a family leader there. And how wonderful that they had a relationship that was so open they could actually talk about that journey. And yeah, it sounds that way, you know.
Yeah, and how do people manage these discomforts? I mean, I think so many my own launching story, you know, is of course I didn't like being away from home at first. Of course I got up against the challenge, and I didn't have the ability to turn right to my parent and have them do something immediately to fix it. And thank goodness I had a parent who really did say, I think you can figure this out. You're gonna find your way, you know. And I think that was really useful to me.
Yeah. I had a very warm, affectionate, gushy, and sometimes unstable mother. And I'll never forget when I was 19, I worked on Maggie's farm. You know the song? I don't want to work on Maggie's farm no more.
I don't think I knew that.
Worked on that farm. It was really bad. And I called her up, and I was like, oh, I was whining. Oh, I was like way out in the middle of nowhere, probably on a cell phone. I'm like, oh, whining. And she just was like, well, you're going to have to figure it out. And I was so like happy. I felt the medicine coming into me from her. And it was a bit surprising that she did that to me, because she was the kind of person who would always take your side. And I'm really glad she didn't take my side.
How interesting.
My dad was better at not taking my side. He was very, you know, and I look back on it and it annoyed me. But it was easier for him to just, he was always kind of like, well, what'd you do? I was like, that's not what I was looking for. I'm going to go talk to mom.
Yeah.
But that's a good question for launching.
Yeah.
I've noticed I have 3 kids, and what I say, two and a half launches. There's a story there. But I've just noticed over these past 5 years, there's been a lot of like, they ask me a question and I'm filled with wisdom and experience, right? And I just answer it immediately, but then I delete it.
Oh.
And I delete before I send it, and I say, what do you think about this? You know, or hearing they're struggling, and my go-to has been, I hope you're using your best thinking. Let me know how you figure it out. And it's not because I don't care, because, oh my Lord, I want to jump in. So there is that tension, and maybe sometimes they feel abandoned, but also I hope, like you say, it's the medicine. It's like a reminder that you can figure it out, and it might not be easy, but
oh my goodness,
that's part.
The world would be a better place if more people understood the over-functioning, under-functioning reciprocity in Bowen.
Yeah.
Because so many people don't have that understanding that you have, Dixie, that sometimes over-helping is actually making other people weaker. It's just such a simple idea, but it is not popular.
Yeah. And it's in those tiny little moments.
Yeah, and I was thinking about even the reciprocal, the invitation from the parent, from the parent to the child to come help them, like to stabilize them as they're launching, right? I mean, I've had lots of folks that feel that invitation to...
The parent invites the kid to stabilize them, to come stabilize me?
Yes.
By being messed up so I can take care of you?
Yeah. Or sad or vulnerable. You know, I was laughing because one of the things I did when I was thinking about my examples, I've been seeing a lot, it's college entrance time soon, right? So I've been seeing all the memes about, and I looked through and I did a little search, and I'm like, all of these memes are of these incredibly sad parents. You know, one of them said, my kid as they leave the house to go to college, and there's the sad character from Inside Out. And I'm like, what a projection on this process. And then the other side of that was the kids saying, stop calling me. Stop making my doctor's appointment. Don't call my professor.
Wow.
You know?
And I've known some moms who had like a lot of grief for a period of time at that launching time, but then the kid did really well. So it's kind of interesting. Like there's a lot of variation in this.
So much variation.
My elevator pitch, I'd love you guys to attack my elevator pitch. But it's trying to be provocative, and it's definitely like quick and dirty.
Yeah.
You know, love them or launch them, take your pick, because it's just not that simple, but I think it's kind of funny.
It gets me thinking. Well, because I think you could ask what kind of love is helpful just as much as you could ask what kind of help is helpful, right?
Yes, you can unpack these things.
And I think when we watch the nature documentaries, we see, you know, that it's like, this is part of what it means to survive, is to like push them. And then there was the time we knew one of our kids was struggling, and we're like, let's put on a fun show, but we couldn't find anything. So we watched this documentary, and it's just these baby seals just plummeting to their death. Like, oh no, that's our children struggling.
That show has probably made a lot of money. Everybody wants to watch that. Baby seals plummeting to your death, like that's hot stuff.
Yeah.
Bowen theory is really boring. That's hot stuff. I have so many anecdotes from the animal world, and I'm very grateful to the Bowen Center and the Bowen wisdom tradition for putting that stuff in front of us. Amazing guidance. For me, one of them was one of our faculty here at the Vermont Center for Family Studies shared one very short video of a very well-bred dog with like 12 pups. And she was like nipping at him when they tried to go for her breasts or her teats. And it was very aggressive, what she was doing. Very calm. And they just like, boom,
Yep.
got the message, you know? And I think, we've lost some of that, when we talk about being disconnected from nature. For Bowen theory geeks, that was one of Bowen's sort of speculations, I would say, about the 21st century, that the man's disconnection from nature was a fundamental problem. I think it has more to do with this kind of thing than some kind of maybe fuzzy, like too much technology, for example. I don't really think it's so much that. I think it's more this kind of thing, like forgetting that the mama dog in you.
Yeah. Yeah. How connected you are to other species, and how rooted in evolution so much of our behavior
Maybe just
is.
losing some of our instinctive wisdom.
Yeah.
Or
having someone else tell you that it's not. I mean, I think that, the thing that people are up against is so much advice coming at them all the time.
Well, it makes me think, your example, I've had some conversations with my kids recently about some of the limits that we set. I think I've said this in another episode, but suddenly 5-10 years out, they appreciate those limits, even though they railed against them at the time, and they see how it was helpful, or they wish we had
the thing, right?
They wish we had set more limits, and it makes me think
even that.
Yeah, and thinking back, it's like, if I was probably too driven by their feeling, their emotional response, versus the principle of what I'm trying to, what's important to me as a parent, or in this particular area. So feeling versus principle, short-term versus long-term.
And I like your point about, what do you tell your neighbors about your kids, and how we might want to pretend. And I'll just say, my youngest is 20, my oldest is 30. I still fight the battle every day to be the parent I want to be versus the parent I feel like being.
That's a great way to put it. Yeah, I think
it's really almost every day, but definitely every week. Still, even though none of them live here. All kinds of decisions that keep coming across. How am I going to respond to this? How am I going to respond to this? How am I going to respond to this?
Right.
One little thing is just popping in my head. We have, our house, and when they were young, I had this idea. I want my girls to learn how to climb on a roof. And they were pretty young. They were really young, like they might have been 4.
Oh, God.
But I was passionate about it. Like, my girls are not going to be afraid to climb on a roof. So we got a ladder, we got a picnic. I supported them climbing up that ladder. We got up on the roof, amazing view up there for the mountains. And we had a good time up on that roof. 4 years old.
Wow.
And I credit my wife, because she was like, "Are you sure?" I was like, "Yeah, I am sure. I am not going to hurt them."
Yeah, and her ability to manage her own discomfort, your wife.
Yes, and I think that's so interesting. Katie, you talk about this triangle, and like, whose anxiety dominates in the marriage?
Yeah.
Does anxiety dominate in the marriage? Does it dominate? Is it like, oh, well, okay, you're uncomfortable, so we're not going to do it.
Yep.
You're anxious, so we're not going to do it.
Yeah.
If it's the wife who's doing that with her husband, oh, you're uncomfortable, so we're not going to do it. You're playing a role, ma'am. You are playing a role in
so
them.
True. And Eric, how observant a person has to come. Well, maybe I can just speak for myself, that I can actually see it in action, versus I don't do the thing because I've sensed that my husband.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Automatic, right?
Yeah.
I'll just back
Traveling
away.
is always my best teacher for watching some of this stuff.
Traveling?
Yes.
Why?
Different people's anxieties, I think, get stirred up in traveling.
In the airport or something?
The airport,
around
how
travel.
we plan, where we go, what we do, watching that variation across. I've done 2 trips with my extended family this summer, and so watching the variation of how we all want to go about that, it's been a great great teacher.
Yeah, there was a ton of variation in the pandemic.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and as I wanted to make sure that I live in Vancouver in BC, which is a very, ethnically diverse city. And so I get to exposed. And one thing I wanted to talk about is that there is cultural variation in thinking about launching and how that process works and how you do that. And I think it's not, imposing this idea of how to launch, but watching even in a cultural dictate of how this process works, there would be such variation. And so to watch that variation within different cultures, where some cultures you don't leave the house until you're married, right? That's a very standard practice. And how does the parent manage that? How does the child manage that? How does the extended family manage that? So I think I wanted to make sure that was said, that this isn't, a one size fits all.
I'm glad you did.
Family.
I think reducing maturity, human maturity, and human launching to a simple set of behavioral rules would be a mistake.
Yeah.
It has more to do with the level of self of the people doing whatever they do.
Yeah.
Like controversial comment by Erik Thompson. I once saw a study, big, well done, UC Berkeley meta-study of spanking. And what it found was, in lots of cases, spanking is great. Great outcomes. Lots of cases, spanking is bad. Lots of cases, no spanking is bad, doesn't work. Lots of cases, no spanking is great.
Such variation.
It's who's spanking.
Yeah, I think that's... Well, and I think you could look at that.
Not spanking.
I think you could look at that, spanking gets everybody riled up, but you could look at that, what I really appreciated about Bowen theory is the parent who overindulges. That's another way to think about that way a parent will focus on a child and provide them everything and not be able to say no at all.
Right.
Spank them with yes. Spank them with fear.
Yeah.
Spank them with your fear. I mean, I get kind of jocular about these things, which I think is actually good. Like, let's not all be so precious and kick it around. But when you're faced with a parent who's like, it just feels like a crippling fear of their kid getting hurt. It's real.
Yeah.
What are you gonna do about that? I don't know.
Yeah.
That's not easy. That's not an easy thing to deal with.
Yeah. And
maybe
again,
some of it's real. Some of it's reality. You don't want to make that miss either.
Yeah.
Where you're too cavalier, but I will say that I believe that the misses on that side are far less frequent in American culture than the misses on overprotection.
Yeah, I hear you.
I think it's like 10 to 1.
I hear you.
Maybe more than 10 to 1. Maybe 100 to 1 or higher.
Yeah. Which I can think about just comparing my own childhood to mine.
How so?
My parenting, just that my anxiety about my 10-year-old kid walking home from school, which, by the way, is like 4 blocks, if even. and my parents just saying they'll figure it out. Yeah. They take the bus, they get there, they do that all by themselves. They manage, we always had a joke with my siblings and I that we just, internally knew in about 15 minutes before we expected the parent home, we had to tidy a few things that we've just made a disaster up.
Another controversial comment by Erik Thompson is that the America is safer than it's ever been. There's far less violent crime in America and actually all across the developed world than there was 50 years ago.
Yeah.
But the message we're getting is that it's never been more violent.
Doesn't feel like that. Right?
Yeah.
Doesn't feel like that, but it doesn't. Yeah. If the facts are really pretty astounding, check out Steven Pinker, the Harvard. He's a scholar. He does a lot of different things, but one of his areas is the world's getting better and data.
Yeah.
That kind of fits with my takeaway, which was get your family history about launching. I had a great conversation with my mom this week and found out that at the time that she launched, her parents had like a big move. Like the family moved to another place.
Okay.
My grandparents launched during the Depression. My first launched, she graduated COVID year. Like, what is that? What are the other factors that are part of the launch, let alone sort of the family principles?
Way to
it was just
step back out of maybe unhealthy feelings and anxiety that's not really serving, because anxiety is not a bad thing, but sometimes it doesn't serve. To do that, So what'd you learn? Did you get any good like revelations from that?
I wanted to hear the challenges and like I said, did you feel overhelped or underhelped by your parents, thrown out on your own or not? And the feeling of that at the time can be maybe different when you're on the other side of it too.
Yeah.
Over time, how the perspective changes.
Dixie, I think I'm going to highlight from that. Eric, you mentioned Dan Papero. One of the things I appreciate with his assessment model that he's developed, which we can link in here, it's been talked about a few times, is the emphasis of also looking at strengths and resources. I think it's interesting when you ask a question to, what were the hard things about launching versus, what do you think went into you guys doing it well? Like, what do you think were the resources to your family when you had a hard time? Where did you go to? What was useful? I know my own family history was to even think of family as a resource. I mean, I think that was useful in my multi-generational history to know there was a way that this family is a resource to me. They don't have to always overfunction for me, although I imagine they did, but they were also a resource. And that was something that came down through the system.
I really love this question, like riffing on what you said, Katie. What do you think your parents did really well that helped contribute to you being able to stand on your own 2 feet and know who you are?
Yeah, great question.
Even for a family that's full of the narrative that we kind of suck, like our parents were horrible and we're a mess and my brother went to jail, and okay, so what did they do really well?
Yeah, I think it's a powerful question.
Yeah,
I think that's a good question to end on. I think that's a question that I could probably think about for myself, for my parenting. So thanks for being here today, Erik.
It was fun.
Thanks
for what you guys are doing.
And I hope our listeners take some ideas to think about as you go out into your relationships. This podcast is produced by Living Systems, a nonprofit organization in Vancouver offering counseling and training programs in Bowen family systems theory across Canada.